Hi everyone, I'm April Forts and this is the November webinar for Iowa Core Advocates, and today is November 8th and I'm April Forts. And Julie Hookey is also on with me, and you'll see our emails on the slide that's on the screen.
Good morning, I'm Julie from Heartland.
And Julie is the co-facilitator of this community/network. And so if you are a Twitter follower, you can follow Iowa Core Advocates, and that's for both math and ELA. And we also use the different hashtags there. And since it's around math, then whenever we do something with math, we put hashtag Iowa Math. And there is a G+ group that we have been having people join, and hopefully we can get that conversation going today. So today's objectives are implementation around the focus tool and coherence and the coherence map. So if you haven't already, introduce yourself in the chat and let us know if you were at last month's webinar or if you were able to watch the recording. And you should see the chat. It should be blinking orange from when I put in the Google Slides. No problem, Sue. And I was hoping someone would be on that couldn't attend, because it's not going to impact your attendance today or participation today, because what Julie and I are doing is we really want this to be meaningful for those that are able to attend live. And so we don't want to just say, hey, we need to get so far by a certain point, and we kind of want to use formative assessment, because we want this time to not just be, hey, we're going to come and give you a bunch of information, but you're going to come and we're going to have some conversation, and hopefully you can learn some things that you can implement relatively easily and quickly, or help to facilitate some of those conversations that you're having with districts. So great. So I see everybody did find the chat, and that's great. And Heather watched last month's recording. So Heather, I hope you found that beneficial. And so today, again, last month we really talked about college and career readiness standards. And so now we're getting into doing more of a deep dive into the shifts. So we started with focus, and we just had enough time to really get to the breakout. And we wanted to come back to that because those conversations that we're able to have are just really vital to how we apply it to our work and that reflective piece. So we're going to work on focus today and then get into coherence, how we have time for those that are on, and then we'll just keep going from there. And Julie, I think you were gonna.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about focus, and I'll go ahead and let you take care of the PowerPoint. Does that work, April? I think.
Yep, perfect.
So first of all, like April said, we started a little bit with the focus, and for some of you, maybe who are new to the world of teaching mathematics or mathematics, maybe you don't really see these as shifts. This is just the way you see math, is the way it should be taught, which is great. But for those of us that have been around for quite a while, we really never had a strong focus as far as what we were going to teach. In the United States, we just kind of like to teach everything, and we thought we could do it all and teach everything at a deep level, which obviously does not really work. So April, if you want to switch to the next slide. The next one really shows us, you know, we really had this mile wide and each inch deep philosophy. We would teach geometry and stats and algebra and numeracy, all try to being at the same level. Well, the college and career readiness standards really try to help us narrow that scope but deepen it at the same time. So that's really our goal, is to try to go deeper into the content and really be specific about what we teach at each grade level. So the next one really shows us, and maybe some of you are familiar with this, but if you're not, this is really important. There are major works for each of the grades so that the students really can get a solid foundation for what they're supposed to be learning at each of these grade levels. So you can see that the focus for K2, 3, 5, and then grades 6, 7, and 8. And really, you're trying to build this strong conceptual understanding as well as your procedural skill and fluency. And then as we get into more of the rigor, we'll see how that all fits in with actually applying the mathematics outside of the classroom. So again, the major works, and the next slide really shows us more deeply what this looks like. If you have not seen these before, we'll show you where you can find it. This is all on Achieve the Core. But this is a slide or the example of what focus looks like in 6th grade. So it's very intentional. And there also you can see how this really brings about focus and coherence, which we'll talk about later, as we identify the major works for each of the grade levels. So you can see that the focus is by cluster title, and then you can go back to the Iowa Core and see which standards fit under each of those cluster titles. So your major clusters for each grade will be shown to you in green, and that's where the majority of our time should be spent. The blue are the supporting clusters, which then help us with the coherence across the grade level, and then across grade levels and within the same grade level. And then as time permits, we have additional clusters. So this is really important. It's something that I certainly didn't know about even a couple years ago, that I really am trying to help teachers understand at each grade level. You can't do everything to the same depth, nor should you try to. So really, this is a important file. And April, I don't know if we want to go there now or later. Do you want to show them where this is on Achieve the Core?
Yeah, and I link it in the slide when we go to the breakouts.
Okay, perfect. So no matter, and some of you that are on are instructional coaches, and so this is really important to you. This is specifically K-8 right now, and then we'll also get into what this looks like a little bit at high school.
And
all
then,
right. Go ahead, April.
You're fine. And then generally how I find it is I will just Google Achieve the Core and just type in focus or focus documents. And then when you bring it up, my computer knows I go there a lot. So, and then when you go into here, and you'll see that they're individual by each grade band or grade level. And then this one down here is all of them together for K-8. And then over here, you'll find high school, and then some more stuff for how content is visibly emphasized. So I just tend to Google it because it comes right up, and that's how I get to it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So the next slide, some of you may be familiar with. We use this quite a bit even back in our Iowa Core training days. This is something that is really the progression to algebra, and what really is important in grades kindergarten through 8th grade to get students prepared to be successful in Algebra 1. I don't know what some of your experiences are, but I know in a lot of my work, which includes most of the Des Moines Public Schools, that Algebra 1 is, if not the most failed class in the system, one of the most failed classes in the system. And as we all know, it's also a requirement to graduate in most of our school districts. So we can't blame all that on Algebra 1 teachers. If you look at this chart, and I know this is not easy to see, but you can find this on the back of the focus documents. It really shows at each grade level what are the clusters that should be taught so that students can be successful in Algebra 1. It's something that I've used a lot with teachers. I think you have to dig into it. It's something that is not easy maybe to look at, but if you take it grade by grade, I think it really shows you the interconnections from grades kindergarten through 8th grade that really help students be successful. So that's another document that I think you'll want to keep track of. All right, the next, oh, go ahead, April.
Yep, and these are all the clusters. So when you go to your standards under each of your domain, those bold headings, that then this you'll have a different number of standards underneath. So these align to that, and these will all match up with the green boxes over here. So this is a way to see all of those green boxes across the grade 8 span.
All right. Now, as far as high school goes, there are some documents, maybe April can show them later from Park, that really have gotten more specific as far as what some people think should be taught in each of our high school classes. When the standards were written for high school, they actually have never been written as far as what do we teach in Algebra 1 versus Geometry versus Algebra 2, which I know a lot of people would like. And there are documents, Appendix A being one of them, that really do help us, help school districts decide what standards specifically are going to be taught in each course. Ideally, we would teach some kind of integrated mathematics at the high school level. Which I know at least in my area, no one does, and maybe in some of your areas they do, but as far as the United States as a whole, we don't specifically teach that way. So instead of saying these are the standards that need to be taught in each course, these are really what we call widely applicable prerequisites for areas of focus in high school. So they've been identified as being the most important for a wide range of college majors and post-secondary programs, college and career ready. This actually is a list. It lists the clusters and the standards that would be most applicable across just a wide range of post-secondary work. So it's actually a subset of the materials that students would study for college and career readiness. That last column, as you look at it more specifically, that says applying key takeaways from grades 6 through 8. And those should be present in high school courses as they deem appropriate. And I think I heard April say at one point she really would like to switch this around and put that column at the beginning of this chart, which I also think makes a good deal of sense.
Yeah, I would like to do that. Maybe when Jason's here in Iowa tomorrow, we can talk to him about fixing his chart. We'll see how that goes over.
Yes. So, all right. So that helps give the high school a little bit more of a focus. All right. So the next slide, and this is actually probably the last slide we'll show you before we actually get some of your reactions to some of this and give you time to kind of share some of your thoughts. But this kind of shows where we should spend our time. So if you read through some of the focus documents, it says we should spend 65 to 85% of our time on the major works of the grades. So as you can see, what has been done, like if you take third grade, so out of 11 of the different clusters, 7 of those are major works, which is 64% of the time. So you can see that this is a starting point. There's nothing that says specifically this is the amount of time that has to be spent, but it's just a guide that's calculated by clusters. So it does not account for the number of standards under some of the clusters. As you know, some clusters have 2 standards and some might have 5 standards broken into 3 or 4 different parts. So the standards themselves can determine some of that time. But the percent of the clusters on the major work, a lot of it already falls within the 65 to 85% range, but you can see that in some of the grades, like 7th grade, it does not. So what this means, if instructional materials simply handled the clusters as your checklist, then they would not be spending the majority of your time on the major works in some of these grades. So again, it's really just something for you to focus on with your teachers and actually have them do some reflection and some investigating into their curricular materials to see how much time is actually being spent on the major works for that grade level.
Yeah, and Julie, I think this chart, what this chart does a good job of doing is really showing us that if we treat the standards like a checklist, like everything gets the same amount of time, how much we're really going to be off. And we know that like in 6th and 7th grade, that's when they do all of their ratio and proportion work, and it's never taught again. So as Julie pointed out, in 7th grade, if they only spend 44% of the time because they're handling the standards as a checklist, then they're really going to be short on that instructional time. And when I taught middle school, I know that I know that textbooks are not curriculum, but the reality of it is we're all human beings and we have limited times, and sometimes they are a tool that we maybe use more than we should. And so my particular tool had it was like 15 days. It was the smallest section. And now that I know so much more about the shifts and the standards and the coherence and rigor, I'm like, oh my goodness, I should have been spending like a quarter of each of my 6th grade year on it, and definitely more time than I did in 7th grade. So that's just been real eye-opening, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to share this information, because I thought I was pretty up to speed on things, and then as I learned more, I was like, oh, I was totally wrong. So we definitely want to get that word out. Okay, so the next slide is when we're going to have some fun, and this is really the part of webinars that are fun, because it's not fun just to sit and listen to people talk for an hour. Trust me, I know I attend a ton of webinars on things that I need to learn about and I just don't have a choice of. And so what we're going to do is these first couple of links link to, so this first one on focus, and I put the slide deck in the chat for everyone so you can get there. But this first one is going to take you to that webpage at Achieve the Core that has the focus by the grade level, so you can get to those documents. Then what Julie was just talking about, that high school focus, that this was another document where we went through and we highlighted so that you can see those focus with the yellow, and the blue is really that algebra strand that we want students to get into. So that's just really a big deal across all 3 of those grade levels. And then we have this little focus tool that we did these webinars over the summer and had conversations. And so one of the things we started talking about last week is we can use this tool, and it's not like you necessarily have to map it all out, but this tool can be used as maybe a conversation starter to say, you know, if I'm teaching 3rd grade within this major cluster here, what are my standards within that? And then how many days am I actually spending on it? And then this whole column here, like if you do this and you add this column up and you're not anywhere near your 104 to 136, you might need to make some adjustments. So this is just a tool that we're kind of just some way to have that reflective piece that Julie talked about.
Yeah, I think that's a really helpful tool for teachers. And April, I have not used it enough with teachers, but with the ones I have, I think it's very eye-opening as they look through their curriculum.
Oh, good. And then so what we're going to do at this part, we do have 8 people on, so I'm going to put you probably in 2 groups. And we did this on the Principles to Action webinar, and everybody really liked it. And I actually got the idea from Mike Flynn because I'm attending one of his virtual coaching networks across the country, and this is what they do. So they break us into small groups, and here's some small group talking prompts. So you can go into here and just think about, do you think your curriculum is reflective of the major clusters? Do you think you're spending the time? What would it take from where you're at now to get you to the next step? You know, is it having that conversation? Is it more time? Is it a mind shift? So these are just some talking prompts. You can use them or you can come up with your own. And then what we'd like you to do is put your takeaways here from your breakout. So you can go into this Padlet that's also linked in there, and then you can click this little red plus or pink or whatever it looks like. And then when you do that, you can just start typing, and then you can leave your comments. So this is a way for us to collect it and then be reflective later on, because then this afternoon when we do the webinar again, or if somebody's watching the recording, they can go in and see this too and be like, oh, that's a good idea. So this is a way for us to leverage technology to be interactive, but also to be collaborative. And so before I put you into small groups, are there any questions? Okay, you should get an invite that says you've been invited to this breakout room, and then you go in and somebody just take the lead and get the conversation started, start with introductions or whatever, and get that conversation going. And then I'll bebop around and kind of see where we're at with the conversation. And as it seems like conversations are starting to wrap up, then we'll bring you back, and then we'll look at that Padlet and see what we have kind of learned or ideas that we have. So you should get an invite. And Sue, did you make it to a room? Oh, there she is. Julie, can you hear me? Devin, Aaron? Okay, Devin can hear us. Okay. And Aaron can hear us. Are you all able to talk? Can you go ahead and unmute yourself and give an introduction, and then?
I think I unmuted myself.
Yep, you did.
Okay. Devin Duncan, middle school instructional coach, first year here from being a fourth grade teacher.
One of the teachers that the Big Ideas math that we use currently, it does address the standards. However, I know that she also mentioned that there are areas that they kind of gaps, in a couple of places. Although for me to be able to share that out right now and what those are specifically, I would probably need to ask her again. But I feel like that's where these resources are going to come in handy moving forward, is to just take a look and be able to share those with them and have more conversations regarding how do we bridge that and how do we address those issues as they crop up.
We're starting a new curriculum. We're using Springboard math. It's College Board, written by College Board. So it's, and so we just started this work looking at the clusters and have noticed some gaps as well, like you have. And we're finding, I think, more of the gaps maybe in geometry and then in the probability and statistics realm, because I'm not quite sure if this is true, but I feel like maybe those are some of the modules that get dropped along the way. Like if you're trying to keep up pacing, earlier on, like in second and third and fourth and fifth grade, oh, we don't have enough time, we'll just drop that geometry unit because they'll get it later. But now at least I'm starting to see, like at the 8th and 9th and 10th grade areas, like, whoa, we don't have a lot of geometry knowledge background. So maybe that's something that we're doing wrong. I don't know. So anyway, we're just kind of starting the work on the clusters.
Well, and I think it's interesting that you bring that up because you mentioned geometry. And I know a flip side of that is one of our teachers who is at the 7th grade level talks about how she would love to see more tasks and just different activities she could do with students for algebra because she has a more difficult time doing something tangible. Like she wants students to get something into their hands or to be able to have a simulation or be able to see those real world connections and authenticity, you know, through the AIW framework. And she's struggling with that. So I don't know if any of you have noticed that or talked to teachers that have shared similar frustrations, but that's what I'm really kind of hungry for, is to try to find some things that would help her to supplement that part.
There's a lot of great stuff out there. Like I've done some work with some 3-act lessons that gears to high school that would help out with those. Desmos, and Desmos has some really good stuff too out there, geared for Algebra 1, those types of things with high-level tasks. So just check out a bunch of those. I have a huge list. I don't have it right in front of me, obviously, but so that would kind of help out your high school teachers a little bit.
And is that, I guess I'm trying to figure out what tool that is.
Okay, so it's on the PowerPoint slide 11.
Yep.
The second one, focus tool.
We have not used it, but it looks like a good conversation starter.
Yeah, I agree.
And helping them take, you know, we've looked at what should be the major, like we've looked at that diagram with the, is it blue or green squares and the yellow circles, whatever that one is. But this might be a way to take that and kind of help them process it a little better and make it a little bit more meaningful, because I like how it says how many days of instruction and things like that.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's really, it becomes pretty eye-opening because I like it that it's some, you know, kind of like hard data instead of just well, we think we do this. And I mean, you can actually, you know, count the number of days these teachers are teaching some of this.
Yeah.
So all right. And it looks like if you guys want to, so it would be the the Padlet. If you click on that, and then there's that pink circle on the bottom right-hand corner. And if you want to jot down, you could jot down some of the things we just talked about, and then that way there's a record of just some of your thoughts.
Okay.
Percent of the instructional time on the major clusters. And I honestly, I can just say, I don't know. It would be something I would need to sit down and talk to them a little bit further to find out what, and I think that would be a great discussion to have, is to share out information and find out with them who they feel that they are spending that much time.
Yeah, and that's why I think our next conversation is going to play into that. So looking at, okay, you determine these are essential skills or major clusters. Now look back at your curriculum maps that you did last year, and now let's highlight and figure out how much time are you spending on it. Where do we need to make some adjustments? Are we spending too much time or not enough time? And then that's where I can come in as an instructional coach and say, okay, you're not spending enough time. What can I help you with resources, or what can we use to, you know, get a little bit more depth of knowledge, I think. And then from there, we go into the assessment pieces. How are we assessing? That we're not just using one test, you know, the end of the unit test. What else are we doing? Right now, we're in the development of some math probes that we're doing ourselves and tracking kids. So that's kind of an interesting process, but right, wrong, and different, I guess. It's worth a shot.
building new job. Going well so far, just trying to help implement some changes. I think that focus tool will really help though.
Right.
Because I have talked to them about looking at the like power standards in the major clusters, but it's just hard for them to not go day by day in their math book.
Right. And I think, as we get away from that term power standards and just go more into what is the focus, what are the major works, I think that just even that language is a lot better.
Yeah, because I think the focus tool could really help. Because I know they struggle with hitting everything in our Go Math book. So if they know where to focus their time, that could help also.
Right.
So I think
I work a lot with Des Moines, and they use Go Math for K-5, but not for the middle school. So it's interesting to, talk to somebody that uses it in middle school.
Yeah, and it is different. It's the same curriculum, but like in elementary, each chapter gets its own workbook. But in the middle school, it's just one giant workbook for the whole year.
Oh, okay.
So that's different. And the website for it is different too. I know I used to do a lot of self-pacing with my kids on the interactive student edition, but they don't have that for the middle school. So
okay.
I know some of the teachers have wished that they had that for the middle school as well, but they don't.
And then what do you use for algebra in the 8th grade?
I actually just sat down with John Butts from the AAA this morning because our algebra book doesn't even have any standards in it, so it's very, very old. I was working with some of the teachers on their daily reviews and some prerequisite skills, and she gave me the algebra book, and there's not a single standard in it. So trying to look at some other curriculum options online that are free as well.
Did he show you the Unbound, I say Unbounded, but Unbound Ed site?
No, he showed me the OR something.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Well, that doesn't really have
algebra.
No,
that's K8 or 6-8. No, and then we looked at Engage New York.
Okay. So I'll put another thing in the chat here to you. Okay. Unbound Ed is basically like Engage New York, but I find it a little more organized.
Okay.
And it's got some good activities as well, but it's all free too. So here, let me find it now. Send it to you.
I can do it. Perfect. I'll add you to it. Awesome. Thank you. You bet. I saw
you. AEAs could, share that out with instructional leaders and people in, all the districts that they are currently serving, because it's a way to get deeper and have those conversations from a coaching perspective. But it's also was very valuable for the teachers to, even if they're not in a coaching conversation, it poses the different questions that will help them to dig deeper and to get them thinking about those pieces. So that might be something moving forward that we could use. What are your thoughts, Heather, about that piece, that question?
I don't know. That's a tough one. Our school district just struggles with time, because you have each site has their own elementary, 10 miles apart. And then the middle school teachers, and high school teachers obviously just have pretty rigorous schedules. And so we're trying to embed it into our PD as much as we possibly can, obviously. But like I said, this is only the second time we've been able to do a meeting like this. We're hoping to do more of them, but that's our biggest thing is time. And I'm sure everybody, probably feels the same way. But yeah, I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Heather, just the fact that you really have to make time. Like something we've done this year is set aside like a half a day where our math teachers can get together at the different levels. It would be nice to have them come together like 5th through 12th or something like that. Or K through 4 or something, where we can kind of have some vertical articulation there. And so you can kind of see what's beneath the grade level that you're teaching and what's coming up, so they kind of can see beyond just the scope of their classrooms. But we have done that, and some teachers have kind of pushed back a little bit just because that's another afternoon out of their classroom, and I understand that too. So just building in time to work on, just to actually share these kind of documents with them and to show them, and to really be reflective about just the whole process. So that's probably our number one struggle. As far as AEAs go, I feel pretty supported. We're with the Mississippi Bend AEA, and we have a gal, Shannon Passvogel, who comes.
Okay.
So it's just another guide. I mean, sometimes you have to be careful not to overwhelm people, but like your high school teachers, I used to work with them years ago. I don't know if they're still the same people, but they certainly are really capable of, taking something like this and figuring it out. So,
yes.
But it also, I think as far as I think it starts with grade 3 in this document, but I'm assuming that most of this stuff for 3 through 8 is the same as what we've already looked at. Let's see how I can do this.
It looks like we lost Erin.
Yes, she had to leave.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure she didn't get kicked out.
Do we only have one person left?
No. The other group's coming back.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, so here comes back everyone else. Okay. Well, it takes a second for him to come back. And so I heard some really great conversations. I also heard some sharing of some resources, and I wasn't able to catch them all in the chat. I did catch one, and Lee, I think maybe you shared this one, and this one was amazing because I have not seen this one. This one is this is the IPG printable. I thought this was, for some reason, I thought this was a printable version of the Focus. Do you want to share, Lee, why you put this in the chat?
Yes. Okay. Well, we have just started to, last year in the spring, it was actually because I needed to do a presentation in relation to ELA and Achieve the Core. And I admitted to my group, I am much more familiar with the ELA than I am the math side of it. It's just the way that that worked out. But last spring, I tried out an IPG with a social studies teacher because we were actually working on social studies standards. And we're not content specific as coaches in my district. So we work with all different just different content areas, math, social studies. I've worked with art and so forth. So we tested it out, and the social studies teacher provided feedback that she felt that it would be very valuable moving forward. that it was something that she could even bring back to her PLC groups and so forth. And I was on the call with a couple of coaches during the breakout session, which I love that breakout session, April, by the way. But I wanted to share that as a resource. I have not tried it with math, so I'm throwing that out there. I haven't actually tested it with math. However, we did test it recently with ELA as well. And the teacher has just now shared that after having that coaching conversation, and it helps ask those questions, and some of those are on focus specifically too, but it helps them to dig deeper into that lesson and think about that. And she said after the fact that her lesson was very successful. So it just gave her some time to reflect and be proactive versus reactive, because she already knew previously last year that students had struggled with that lesson. So what I had mentioned in the chat room is just that with a couple of those coaches, they could test this out. And then maybe the next webinar, if they are able to have practiced that with a teacher at the math level, then they could share that out with April, and then maybe she could share like a PDF of a completed one, and they could share out thoughts about whether they felt that that was valuable and so forth.
Okay, great. And I'm actually going to put it in the Padlet so we record it. And we are going to get to the instructional practice guide. And I appreciate the fact that you shared it out. And so we're gonna do that. But no, if people are ready to jump there and do that. When Shelby Cole was here and coached up the state math leadership team in April, she talked about they call it the IPG. And then it's a good way to have conversation about content and not just about coaching in general things. And I know with our model, we have a lot of coaches that are not math specific. And as far as, you might be coaching a math teacher and you don't have a strong math background like Lee said. And so this really helps you to be supportive and guide that teacher through having some of those conversations, because it's really about that teacher being reflective, right? It's not, coaching's never about, I'm going to come in and tell you the right way to do it, right? It's about, because no change is going to come from that, right? So it's about them having that reflective. So that is an amazing tool that, yes, we are going to spend more time on the instructional practice guide. Another one that I heard from your group was 3-act task. And so if somebody wants to share, I think it was Heather, did you share this one? And we actually have these on our Iowa Core website.
I shared those. Algebra teacher just wanting some more stuff, I guess, or higher level tasks, those types of things. I find the 3-act tasks are really good. I've introduced those to our high school math teachers, and they've really enjoyed them. I think, our high school math teachers get in a rut of, here's the lesson, here's some problems, let's do them together, here's the assignment, and they do that all the time. And this is a good way to kind of break that up, and they kind of see it. So yeah, the Dan Meyer stuff's awesome. And what I like about it is it's grade specific, or it's content specific, depending on what you're looking for, so you don't have to search all the time. So that's what I really like. So yeah, check those out.
Yeah, so these are really great, and we were fortunate that Dan, he works at Desmos now. I heard Desmos mentioned, and he was kind enough to do a webinar for just Iowa, and that was really great because that was well attended. And Dan's actually going to be coming to coach up the leadership team in February, so we're super excited about that. And then Graham Fletcher and Robert Kaplinski also, they have a ton. Graham tends to be more elementary, and his are aligned to the standards. So those are really great. And these are just super fun for the kids to do. Like, I am taking the fraction course right now with Graham Fletcher, and he does them. And I'm just like, oh, I wonder and things like that. And then Robert Kaplinski, he has a ton too. And I love that this page opens up about how much money were those pennies, because actually I believe if you open up and you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see maybe somebody that is credited with this one. I love it, love it, love it. I actually shot on a Twitter feed, I actually shot it out to Robert Dan Meyer and Graham and said, and so they had a little competition and they decided that Robert won it. So I gave them this little thing. I said, I think this would be a great 3-act task. And so that was just super fun to do. Somebody asked us where this resource is. And so we will put it in the chat, and I'll leave all these things open too, so that, and then I'll link them in the email. So if you want them. Julie, were there any resources that you all talked about in your group?
No, I think the only thing we talked about was I asked about high school and what they were using. When I was talking to Devin, and she said they don't really have like a textbook that they use. So I just directed her to the Unbound Ed website, which is basically like the Engage New York materials, but I think it's much better organized. And they do actually have activities to use, like for each of the different clusters and domains in math. So we were specifically looking at the Algebra 1.
Gotcha. And why we know that this, I'm looking for the Algebra 1 right now. I don't see it.
Just scroll up to,
Now.
isn't there, oh, I thought it was across the top where you could just click on the grade.
Oh, it might have been. Let me go back to here.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I don't, mine actually said Algebra 1.
Oh, right here.
Oh, there it is, yeah.
Yep. So you can get into these guides, and why we know that we can trust this site. And this is part of what I do is when people say, hey, what about this resource? I kind of look for the branding of it. I look for who else has collaborated with it. And if it's got good branding, like if Illustrative Mathematics, if Achieve the Core, if CCSSO, if those people that I know that are doing aligned work are branding or partnering or collaborating, then I know that's a safe resource to share out, and it's not going to mess up anybody. So for example, on this one, you can see where these are the same indicators from the Achieve the Core, from the focus documents. And so this is a great resource that you can deep dive into. And then if you scroll, and I'll just show you, because people always want to know, like, how do I know if I can trust this, right? Because there's so much out there. And being able to kind of, I mean, because we can't vet everything. I don't have the skill set to look at it. But if you look through at the very end, it will say, and you'll see it throughout here, but like they go to Illustrative Mathematics, they go to Engage New York, they go to the progression documents, they're going to PARC. So they're using things that are aligned. And so then I know that I can share this, and this is going to be in alignment with what we're trying to do as a state and within AEAs, and that this isn't going to mess anybody up. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Julie, because actually on the next slide, I believe, so these were some new resources or newer that I got in an email from Achieve the Core. And so this first one here is they put out a game plan to help you make the most out of your math. And for some reason we got that. But so they've got some math guides in here, and it says these resource guides guide you through how to use Ed Reports for classroom success. So you can go into here, and that might be a tool that you would like to use. Also then right here, the Unbounded grade by grade content guide. So Julie, yep, that was great. And then having trouble connecting. And then you can go to Beyond the Lesson discussion guides, which are from Achieve the Core. So again, all things that we can trust because we know it's all from Achieve the Core. It's all going to be aligned with that focus and not mess anything up. So again, if you didn't get a chance to put something on the Padlet, if you want to throw something on there, and then that way we can do that and just kind of keep track of that and any great ideas. And it was really encouraging, Julie, I think, to hear so many people talk about that. It could be a tool to, leverage that or have that conversation and have people be reflective.
I think so, especially for some people that are still using textbooks. I mean, it's kind of sad to say, but we do have people still using textbooks pre-core. So to really help them at least reorganize some of their units of study with maybe some of these supplementary materials, I think that's about the best we can try to do.
Yep. And Yeah, and I know when I was in Dallas, I heard a story about a textbook company. They went to, and it was another vendor that was telling me this story, but they came to their state and they didn't realize the state didn't have the standards that were aligned to the Common Core. And so what they had done is they had taken all of their textbooks and put all these stickers all over them, like those big round stickers that say aligned to the Common Core. And she goes, they were setting up, and when we got there, and then one of the hosts of the event came over and said, "Oh, we're not a Common Core state," and they literally stood there and tore the stickers off. Like, they pulled the stickers off the textbook right there. And she's like, I was so shocked. And that was kind of the thing that we've been saying. And so we know not a ton of our resources that we're currently using, especially if we've had them for a while. I mean, they just treat it like a checklist. So, okay, I think that was a really great conversation, and I will keep these tabs open, and the email that I'll follow up with you all, I will send these additional resources so that you have them. And I'll include them in, like, I'll put them on the website or whatever, because then if somebody watches the recording, they might want them. For the sake of time, I think we don't have time to get deep into coherence, but I would like to show you this one right here and just have you look at this image or this little video that plays and think to yourself, how do you think that this demonstrates coherence? And so if anybody wants to unmic and say what they're maybe thinking, when you think about coherence as being the second shift.
Well, I mean, to me, it's a good visual just to show how in math everything builds upon something else. And I think we have so many kids with so many gaps. We have to get over the fact that, we say ninth graders are working at a third grade level, because I don't think that's true for most kids. I think they have gaps somewhere along the way, but we have to figure out where those gaps are. And I think with the coherence map, which I'm assuming we'll probably get into next time, that really helps us try to focus on where the gaps might be and what we can try to do to fill the gaps so that they can continue to learn the new material they're supposed to be learning.
Yeah, exactly. And if you think about this top block, or those top blocks being students being college and career ready, and what would happen if we took some of those blocks, Julie, you mentioned the gaps, if we took some of those blocks out to represent the gaps in learning and knowledge that students have, or in their skills and conceptual understanding, or in their fluency, if you took those out, right, it's kind of like Jenga, right? It's going to fall over. So we're not really going to get to that college and career readiness that we want students to have at the end of 11th grade. So what I wanted to do, so we'll end it there, and then next time, and Lee, I know I think I have my date wrong again, because in December, let's see here, in December, no, we're actually, I changed the month but not the date, and it's actually a Tuesday when we're gonna meet. And so I don't know what my deal is with the date, but
I think it's oh, you got it. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what my deal is with the date and days, because I actually, note to self, knew that I had messed it up, and I had sent out, and then I was like, well, it seems like it'll still work for several. So we went ahead and went with it. So thank you. It's just a short month with travel and different things, and a couple of holidays thrown in there. So, and if you go down, I put these additional resources in here, and I'll send these other ones. So we have all of these. And at the very end, there is I thought I gave you somewhere I thought I gave you a survey, but maybe I didn't. So, okay, my bad there. So these are all those slides that we shared, or all those resources that we shared during the small group breakout. if you do want to get deeper into this, these are some great resources. This right here, if you go to this shifts overview, and that's a PowerPoint, so that's a great one there that you can explore. These are actual modules, and what's great about these modules is they have user's guides, and the PowerPoints are already in here. So you don't have to invent everything from scratch. So they've already done that. So they give you the activities and everything. And as an instructional coach, I know sometimes I had to do PD. And if you go to these users guides and you scroll down, so this module is a 1 to 4 hour module. But what they do is they give you this, you can do it in an hour, in 2 hours, or in 4 hours. So you can modify it as you need to. And I believe strongly in formative assessment. So even if it's at an hour, but if I'm doing quality, meaningful work with my team and it's taken us 2 hours, that's okay too. Because you want it to be reflective work. And then, so there's a ton there, and then also deep dive into the math shifts. And I think the fact that they have these 2 modules and they're 3 to 4 hour modules, the other one's a 4 hour module, and this can be a 1 to 3 hour module with I think that signifies how important this work is, right? Like if it's just something you can get in an hour, then they would have written an hour module. They would have done just, an hour webinar once. But it's really meaningful and it really makes an impact on students. So again, there's a user's guide here and they tell you what's in it. If you have an hour, then do these things. And they really guide you with suggestions on articles to read. The delivery, so that's a great resource. Again, the website is here. We'll put the recording and everything on the website. We'll also, here's the guidebook, here's some resources, there's still the blog, and then remember to sign up with Student Achievement Partners and fill out that form, because they'll spotlight and they'll highlight things, and then like you can win a $25 gift card from them. I couldn't because I work for the state and I'm not allowed to do that. Just so nobody doesn't think that's why I'm doing it, is to get $25, like I think it's an Amazon gift card or whatever. But then also too, then if they do like something else, like if you tweet something or if you fill out the survey and say, hey, this is what I'm doing with what I'm learning about, then they'll also send you like swag stuff. So, and my apologies because I'm not sure where I put the little form. So I'll send the survey in the email. So I'll send that out. Any questions before we go? We're just a couple minutes ahead of time, which is great. Everybody likes to get out of class on time, right? All right. Well, thanks everyone and have a great week. And Lee, if you have a minute and want to stick around, I can let you know where to, how to do that breakout thing. I've got a couple of minutes now. So thanks everyone. And you'll get a little bit of a break from emails from me because I'm going on vacation. So, and I'm going to not.
All right. Thanks, April. Thanks, everybody.
See you tomorrow, Julie.
Yep. See you. Bye-bye. Let me know if you need anything.
Okay, I will.